everyone. I'm going to start tonight's episode off with something I found on social media that really applies to my message tonight. It says, sometimes you won't understand why you had to go through certain experiences until the very moment when the exact thing you went through is what allows you to help someone else. What I want to talk about tonight is, in general, advocating for your health, but I am going to talk about Mark's story, and then after that, I'm going to discuss my own personal cancer story. And then I will get into specific things that I just really want everybody to know and share with anybody you care about. It's stuff that should be common knowledge. Unfortunately, it's not, and people are dying because they don't know any of this information. So I just wanted to start off by saying no one knows your body better than you, which I've experienced for myself. I've seen it with Mark. I've heard tons of stories about this where you go to the doctor and you say, I just feel like something's off. I feel like something's wrong. And they just say, no, you're fine. And then months later, it turns into something detrimental. So I'm going to start with Mark's story. Mark had acid reflux for several years. He ate Tums throughout the day, all day, every day. And when it would get really bad, he would take Prilosec. The doctor knew that Mark suffered from acid reflux, but he never mentioned that over time it could lead to a condition called Barrett's esophagus, which can then develop into esophageal cancer. If we had known that, Mark could have had a scope done and he could have caught it before it turned into esophageal cancer. He thought it was just an annoying issue he would always have to deal with. Over time, he started having chest pain, and after Googling his symptoms, he self-diagnosed himself with a hiatal hernia. Please do not Google your symptoms or self-diagnose yourself. I'm guilty of doing it myself, but it is not a reliable way to find out what your health issue is. It's so easy to do. You just start Googling little things here and there. I have a headache, I have heartburn, I have this, I have that, and it'll tell you anything from, you're totally fine to you could die tomorrow. It's just not reliable. So please don't do that. Turning the page. Then Mark started rapidly losing weight, and it was obvious something was really wrong. The pain in his chest was getting worse. He didn't have time to see a GI specialist. He needed to go to the emergency room. They did a CT scan. The doctor came in, and I knew from the look on her face she was about to tell us something really bad. She told us that he had a large mass where his esophagus and stomach met. She said it was most likely cancer, but obviously he would need a biopsy. Weeks later, after having a PET scan, we found out that he had stage 4 esophageal cancer that had already spread to his liver, stomach, and lymph nodes. He had numerous brutal chemo treatments and then tried immunotherapy. I also took him to an alternative doctor where he had vitamin C infusions, vitamin D injections, and ozone treatments. The reality was that the cancer was all over his body and it was spreading fast. He battled this evil disease for 9 months. He lost over 100 pounds and was almost unrecognizable. He became extremely fragile and needed a walker. He was in constant pain, and we were always going to the hospital. Eventually, the hospital stays became longer and more frequent, and I eventually asked the doctor if he could go to a hospice facility. He spent a week at hospice and passed away on April 25th, 2019. It was hell on earth to watch him suffer and deteriorate. I feel that it is my responsibility to tell as many people as I possibly can that acid reflux can lead to esophageal cancer. It's not common knowledge, but it should be. Do not let the doctor tell you that it's rare and that they don't think testing is necessary. You have to demand it. The other issue with this disease is that many times there are no symptoms until the cancer has already spread. How can you detect esophageal cancer if it does not present any symptoms that you can recognize? I'm going to read some facts that I found online. It is rare to find someone who has esophageal cancer that did not have chronic heartburn for a long time. By chronic, that means several times a week, almost every week. By a long time, it means 4 to 6 weeks in a row. So just to put it in perspective, if heartburn symptoms occur frequently and persistently, it may be a sign of a more serious problem, such as GERD. GERD is an ongoing chronic reflux of acid into the esophagus. Left untreated, GERD can lead to Barrett's esophagus, a change in the lining of the esophagus that increases the risk of developing an invasive cancer known as adenocarcinoma. Don't ignore the signs. Anyone with chronic heartburn should insist on seeing a gastroenterologist and start exploring their options. Performing an upper endoscopy will allow the physician to gather tissue samples from any abnormal areas of the esophagus, which can then help to determine if there are any cancer cells present. I just want to read one more thing. Heartburn can cause cancer. Talk to your doctor about your concerns if you have more than occasional heartburn symptoms, you have experienced heartburn in the past, but the symptoms have gone away, you have any pain or difficulty swallowing, you have a family history of Barrett's esophagus or esophageal cancer, you have a persistent, unexplained cough, you have been speaking with a hoarse voice over several weeks, you have a persistent, unexplained sore throat, or you cough or choke when you lie down. My cancer story is much different from Mark's. 6 months after he passed, I felt a lump in my right breast. I immediately made an appointment with my gynecologist, and when she felt it, she told me she was 99.9% sure it was a cyst, but that I should still have a mammogram. The way the system is currently designed is that women are supposed to start mammograms at 40, meaning that's when insurance will start covering them, or if you find a lump before 40. So I was 38 when I had my first mammogram. I sat in the waiting room for about 15 minutes and they told me I needed another mammogram to get a better look. I knew this was not good. After they did the second mammogram, I was told that the lump was definitely not a cyst and that I needed to schedule a biopsy. This is not something I ever wanted to hear, but after losing my husband 6 months prior to cancer, it was unfathomable. The biopsy results came back benign. The lump was a fibroadenoma, and the doctor said that they were extremely common and nothing to worry about. But the doctor also saw microcalcifications in my breast, and he said he would keep an eye on them. I told him I was not comfortable keeping an eye on anything that could lead to cancer. So he agreed to scheduling an MRI. Without getting into too many details, the MRI took over a year to schedule. I finally had it done in January of this year. When my doctor called with the results, she told me to immediately schedule another biopsy. I had a second biopsy in February, and in March, I found out that I had invasive ductal carcinoma. The bottom line is that I strongly believe mammograms should start at 30. I personally know several women that have or had breast cancer in their 20s and 30s. The other issue is that you can't always feel a breast cancer lump. I was able to feel the fibroadenoma, but the cancerous tumor in my right breast was never able to be felt. So if I never had the fibroadenoma, this tumor would have gone undetected for 2 years, assuming I had a mammogram as soon as I turned 40. Who knows how far the cancer would have spread by then? Initially, the doctors thought it was stage 1, but they wouldn't be able to tell me for sure until surgery. While I was figuring out my treatment plan, I also had genetic testing done, which was a simple blood test. The doctor said he was confident that the test would come back negative because the mutations are so rare. The doctor was wrong, and my test was positive for the ATM gene mutation, which can cause early onset breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancer, and other cancers. If I had had genetic testing done sooner, I could have started breast cancer screenings at a much earlier age, or I could have chosen to have a prophylactic mastectomy or have my ovaries removed. I had a double mastectomy with reconstruction on May 5th. After the surgery, they removed 3 lymph nodes during that surgery, and 1 lymph node had cancer, so I was actually stage 2. I started radiation on June 28th, and my last radiation treatment was on July 30th. I went to radiation 5 days a week for 5 weeks. Then, exactly a week ago today, I had my tubes and ovaries removed. I will be starting an aromatase inhibitor to block estrogen production in my body, and I am supposed to take that for 10 years. I caught this cancer early and still had to have 2 surgeries, 24 radiation treatments, and will be taking long-term medication. But I'm thankful that those options were available to me. That being said, too many young women are being diagnosed with later stages, 3 and 4, when their options are very limited. Something needs to change. To end this episode tonight, I just wanted to address that I am well aware that this topic is probably not easy to listen to. It's heavy. We're talking about cancer. We're talking about death. We're talking about breast cancer treatment, but this is life, and it happened to my husband, and he's no longer here, and it happened to me, and I am still here, and it happens way too often. I hear cancer stories almost every day. A very close friend of mine just lost her cousin to a rare genetic cancer. I was devastated when I found out. It just seems like it's constantly happening to people I personally know. But I just wanted to end on a lighter note and just say that, as I mentioned, I think in the first episode, as an introduction, we are going to cover a lot of different topics that range from cancer and death to addiction to rape and sexual assault, dementia, really heavy topics like that, but also health topics that I want to share with people, like juicing and sensory deprivation float tanks and color therapy glasses, essential oils, vitamin C infusions, massage, energy work, acupuncture, sound healing. There's going to be a very wide spectrum of different topics. And like I said, some of them are going to be really heavy and some of them will be fun, and kind of how I explained that you have to ride the wave, that's how this is going to be. The podcast itself will be a wave of emotions, and we'll ride it out together, but this is life and it'll be great. So thank you for listening, and I would really appreciate it if you would share my podcast with anybody that you think would enjoy listening. Thank you. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to reach out, you can email me at valariedancingintherain@gmail.com. And my name is spelled VALARIE, dancinginthe.rain@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for your support.